They ruled the greatest empire of the ancient world. Their decisions changed the fate of millions and still echo today in our culture, our politics, and our religions. Today we meet the 10 most powerful Caesars of the Roman Empire, men who shaped history with iron, blood, and ideas that crossed the centuries. Born in 100 BC, Gaius Julius Caesar was not just another Roman aristocrat. He grew up during a time when the Republic was collapsing under the weight of corruption, civil strife, and the unchecked ambitions of generals. From a young age, Caesar proved himself remarkably gifted in both politics and leadership. He advanced through the ranks of Roman offices, aedile, quaestor, praetor, and eventually consul in 59 BC. What made him truly unique, however, was his ability to connect with ordinary Romans. He understood their desires for bread, public games, and meaningful reforms, and he skillfully offered them all. On the battlefield, Caesar's genius became undeniable. Between 58 and 50 BC, he launched the conquest of Gaul, waging campaigns that lasted nearly a decade. In that time, he subdued hundreds of tribes and captured or destroyed over 800 cities. His military victories not only extended Rome's borders to the Atlantic, but also enriched the state with immense amounts of gold, land, and slaves. Caesar chronicled these campaigns himself in De Bello Gallico, a work that remains a classic of Latin literature. His victories made him a hero to the common people of Rome, but also a dangerous rival to the Senate and elite aristocracy. The tension culminated in 49 BC, when Caesar crossed the Rubicon River, declaring Alia iacta est, the die is cast, and setting off a civil war against Pompey and the Senate. His brilliance in warfare brought him victory after victory, and soon he was named Dictator Perpetuo in 44 BC. During his rule, he initiated sweeping reforms, from restructuring administration and revising laws to introducing the Julian calendar, a system that still influences the modern world. Yet his relentless rise to power also inspired fear. Many senators believed he threatened the very existence of the Republic. On the Ides of March in 44 BC, he was assassinated by conspirators, including Brutus and Cassius, men who once stood by his side. They believed they were saving Rome from tyranny, but in reality, they paved the way for the empire's birth. After Caesar's assassination, Rome plunged once more into chaos. From this storm emerged his adopted heir, Gaius Octavius, only 18 years old. Though many dismissed him as weak, Octavian proved to be calculating, patient, and ruthless. He first allied with Mark Antony and Lepidus to form the Second Triumvirate, crushing Caesar's assassins at the Battle of Philippi. But alliances in Rome were temporary. Soon he clashed with Antony, whose partnership with Cleopatra of Egypt turned him into Octavian's greatest rival. The decisive showdown came in 31 BC. At the Battle of Actium, Octavian's fleet triumphed over Antony and Cleopatra, leading to their downfall and suicide. With his enemies gone, Octavian emerged as Rome's sole ruler. In 27 BC, the Senate bestowed upon him the title Augustus, meaning the exalted, marking the official beginning of the Roman Empire. Augustus was careful to avoid appearing as a dictator. He crafted the Principate, a system that preserved the outward forms of the Republic, the Senate, magistracies and assemblies, while concentrating real power in his own hands. He became Princeps Senatus, tribune, consul, and even Pontifex Maximus, ensuring no decision escaped his influence. Augustus also revolutionized Rome's military structure. He established a standing army of 28 professional legions and secured their loyalty with land and pensions. Economically, he stabilized the currency, launched vast building projects, and transformed Rome's urban landscape. Writers like Suetonius described how he found a city of brick and left one of marble. His image was carefully cultivated, supported by poets such as Virgil and Horace, who portrayed him as the guardian of Rome's eternal destiny. Under his rule, the Pax Romana began, a period of relative peace and prosperity that lasted for 2 centuries. When Augustus died in AD 14, he left behind not just an empire, but a stable system of governance that endured for generations. Upon Augustus's death, the immense responsibility of ruling Rome fell to his stepson, Tiberius Claudius Nero Caesar. Unlike Augustus, Tiberius lacked charm and popularity, but he had long proven his military competence. He had campaigned successfully in Germania, the Balkans, and the East, and though many in Rome distrusted him, Augustus's designation secured his throne. As emperor, Tiberius was pragmatic and cautious. Rather than seeking grand new conquests, he focused on securing Rome's frontiers, particularly along the Rhine and Danube. Tacitus notes that he rarely wasted resources on unnecessary wars, preferring to strengthen existing defenses. Economically, he was frugal, amassing reserves of gold and silver to ensure stability for future rulers, though this restraint earned him criticism from a populace accustomed to Augustus's largesse. Politically, Tiberius extended imperial control over the Senate, but his suspicious and often gloomy personality made him increasingly unpopular. In later years, he withdrew from public life to rule from the island of Capri, fueling rumors of cruelty and excess. Ancient writers like Suetonius portrayed him darkly, though modern historians often see exaggeration in these accounts. Despite his poor reputation, Tiberius preserved stability and proved that Rome's power no longer depended on the charisma of a single man, but on the durable machinery of empire Augustus had built. In AD 98, Rome witnessed the rise of a new emperor, Marcus Ulpius Trajan, a man from Hispania, who represented a turning point in Roman history. Unlike earlier emperors, he was not born into Rome's aristocracy, but came from the provinces, symbolizing the empire's transformation into a truly multicultural state. Trajan was above all a soldier. His most famous achievement was the conquest of Dacia, whose king Despabulus had long resisted Rome. After 2 hard-fought campaigns, Dacia was annexed, and its rich gold mines filled Rome's treasury. These resources financed monumental projects such as Trajan's Forum, the Basilica Ulpia, and the famous Trajan's Column, which immortalized his victories in stone. But Trajan's ambition did not stop in Europe. He turned east, waging campaigns against the Parthian Empire, briefly conquering Mesopotamia and advancing as far as the Persian Gulf. At its height, under Trajan, Rome's empire reached its greatest territorial extent, spanning from the Atlantic Ocean to the Tigris River. Although these eastern conquests proved unsustainable and were soon abandoned, they marked the boldest expression of Roman expansion. Trajan was remembered not only as a conqueror, but also as a ruler who cared for his people. His Alimenta program supported orphans and provided credit to farmers, demonstrating a concern for social welfare that was unusual for his time. His reign became the golden standard, and after his death in AD 117, the Senate honored future emperors with the prayer, "May you be luckier than Augustus and better than Trajan." When Trajan died, the throne passed to his adopted successor Publius Aelius Hadrianus, Hadrian, another provincial from Hispania. Unlike Trajan, Hadrian abandoned dreams of boundless conquest. He envisioned an empire that endured not through expansion but through consolidation and defense. Rome's survival depended on consolidating what it already held. Hadrian understood that endless expansion, though glorious, drained men, money, and morale. His very first act as emperor was to abandon the distant provinces in Mesopotamia, won by Trajan. Many at the time saw this as weakness and retreat, but Hadrian viewed it as a pragmatic necessity. He believed that holding territory so far from the empire's core would sap its strength and invite disaster. To him, true security meant fortifying and protecting the heart of Rome, rather than overextending its reach. His reign became defined by a policy of fortification and defense. The most enduring symbol of this strategy is Hadrian's Wall in northern Britannia, stretching 117 kilometers across rugged landscape. This was not just a physical barrier of ramparts, towers, and gates, but also a statement: Rome's expansion had limits, and here stood the edge of its civilized world. Alongside these measures, Hadrian also reorganized the imperial administration. He established legal councils to make judicial decisions more consistent, streamlined the bureaucracy, and improved efficiency in governance, creating a more durable system of imperial rule. Hadrian was not only a soldier and ruler, but also a cultivated man with deep interests in art, architecture, and culture. He commissioned the rebuilding of the Pantheon in Rome, whose immense dome remains one of the marvels of world architecture. He also built his vast villa at Tivoli, adorned with art, gardens, and libraries, a reflection of his passion for Hellenistic culture. Unlike most emperors who preferred to govern from Rome, Hadrian traveled constantly throughout the empire. He inspected legions, oversaw infrastructure works, and met with provincial governors, which not only gave him direct knowledge of Rome's immense diversity, but also reinforced the connection between emperor and subjects far from Italy. His private life too became a subject of fascination and influence. Hadrian's relationship with Antinous, a young Greek companion, was so profound that after Antinous drowned mysteriously in the Nile, the emperor was devastated. He deified the youth, establishing a cult in his honor that spread from Rome to the provinces, an extraordinary gesture for someone outside the imperial family, and a testament to Hadrian's personal attachments shaping public religion. In AD 161, power passed to a man of very different character, Marcus Aurelius Antoninus, born in 121. Unlike his predecessors who sought glory through conquest, Marcus was drawn to philosophy. He was a dedicated student of Stoicism, a school of thought that valued discipline, virtue, and rational self-control. Even as emperor, he continued writing personal reflections in Greek, later known as Meditations, a work of private thought that has inspired countless readers for nearly 2 millennia. But destiny did not grant Marcus the peace of a philosopher's life. His reign was consumed by war, disease, and crisis. Sharing power at first with his co-emperor Lucius Verus, Marcus confronted the Parthians in the east, successfully recovering territories and entering Antioch and even Ctesiphon. Yet the returning armies brought back a terrible plague, likely smallpox. Known as the Antonine Plague, it swept across the empire, killing millions, perhaps as much as 1/5 of the population. The losses devastated cities, disrupted trade, and gravely weakened the legions. As if pestilence were not enough, Marcus faced relentless threats from Germanic and Sarmatian tribes along the Danube frontier. The Marcomannic Wars became the defining struggle of his reign. Despite his love for study and philosophy, Marcus spent much of his later life on the frontiers, leading campaigns in brutal winters and under constant pressure. It was during these years of hardship, amid military camps and uncertainty, that he wrote his deepest Stoic meditations, striving to remain rational and virtuous in the face of unending turmoil. Religiously, his reign witnessed sporadic persecutions of Christians. These were not as systematic or widespread as under earlier emperors, but they left wounds in the collective memory of the early church. The tension between imperial authority and the growing Christian community continued to simmer. Marcus Aurelius died in AD 180 while still on campaign with his soldiers, the last of Rome's emperors, often remembered for wisdom and virtue. His death was seen as the end of a golden age. Yet the decision to pass the throne to his son Commodus proved disastrous. Unlike his father, Commodus was unstable and unpredictable, and many historians view his accession as the beginning of Rome's long decline. The following century, known as the crisis of the 3rd century, plunged the empire into near collapse. Civil wars raged as ambitious generals seized power only to be assassinated or overthrown within months. Barbarian invasions breached frontiers on multiple sides. Economic instability spiraled into runaway inflation, and the sense of Roman invincibility evaporated. It was into this chaos that Diocletian rose in AD 284. A soldier of humble origins from Dalmatia, he inherited a shattered empire and realized that glory in battle alone could not save it. To survive, Rome needed a complete reinvention of imperial power. In AD 293, he created the Tetrarchy, a radical system that divided authority among four rulers: two senior emperors, the Augusti himself and Maximian, and two junior emperors, the Caesars, Galerius and Constantius Chlorus. This structure allowed Rome to govern vast territories more effectively and to respond faster to threats, while also discouraging usurpation. Diocletian reorganized the provinces, doubling their number, established new layers of bureaucracy, and massively expanded the army. He invested heavily in fortifications along the frontiers, ensuring that Rome became not just a city, but a vast militarized state. Economic problems remained severe. In AD 301, he issued the famous Edict on Maximum Prices, an attempt to freeze wages and goods at fixed rates to fight inflation. The policy failed, but it revealed the depth of the economic collapse and the desperation of the imperial government to control it. Religiously, Diocletian was one of the last emperors firmly committed to the old gods. In AD 303, he initiated the most severe persecution of Christians in Roman history, ordering churches to be demolished, scriptures burned, and believers forced to sacrifice to pagan deities. Instead of destroying the new faith, however, these measures only strengthened Christian identity and prepared the ground for its eventual triumph. In AD 305, weary and ill, Diocletian did something unprecedented. He abdicated voluntarily, retiring to his palace in Split, on the Dalmatian coast, where he famously devoted himself to gardening. He became the first emperor in Roman history to step down willingly, demonstrating both his personal fatigue and his belief that the system he built could survive without him. But without his firm hand, the Tetrarchy quickly disintegrated. Civil wars and rivalries between ambitious generals tore the empire apart once more. Amid this storm of blood and intrigue rose Flavius Valerius Constantine, the son of Constantius Chlorus. After his father's death at York in Britannia in AD 306, his troops proclaimed him Augustus. His path to sole rule was long, violent, and uncertain, but his destiny was unlike any emperor before him. The turning point came in AD 312, at the Battle of the Milvian Bridge, fought against his rival Maxentius. According to the historian Eusebius of Caesarea, before the battle Constantine experienced a vision. A cross of light appeared in the sky, bearing the words "In hoc signo vinces," in this sign conquer. He ordered his soldiers to paint the Christian symbol on their standards, and when the battle was fought, the victory was overwhelming. Constantine triumphed, and unlike earlier emperors who credited military discipline, strategy, or the favor of the old gods, he gave the glory to Christ. This marked the beginning of a profound transformation, both for the emperor himself and for the empire he ruled. In AD 313, together with Licinius, he issued the Edict of Milan, a decree that for the first time granted religious freedom across the Roman world. Christianity, once a persecuted and underground faith, was now legally protected and allowed to flourish openly. But Constantine did not stop there. In AD 325, he summoned bishops from across the empire to the Council of Nicaea, the first ecumenical council of the Christian Church. It was here that the core tenets of Christian belief were defined and Arianism condemned, with Constantine himself presiding as arbiter of faith, blending imperial authority with spiritual guidance in an unprecedented way. Constantine also reshaped the empire's geography and political future. In AD 330, he founded a new imperial capital on the site of ancient Byzantium, renaming it Constantinople. This city was designed as a new Rome, complete with senate houses, fora, palaces, and Christian basilicas. Its location at the crossroads of Europe and Asia gave it immense strategic and commercial power, and it would endure as the heart of the Eastern Roman Empire for more than 1,000 years. Economically, he secured stability by creating the solidus, a finely minted gold coin whose weight and purity were maintained with remarkable consistency. The solidus became the Mediterranean standard for centuries, a symbol of imperial strength and economic order. Constantine died in 337, having received baptism on his deathbed. He was remembered not only as a ruler who transformed the empire's spiritual identity by embracing Christianity, but also as the founder of one of the most enduring cities in world history. The empire faced new disasters in the decades that followed. In AD 379, after the catastrophic Roman defeat at Adrianople, the Eastern Empire lay broken. Emperor Valens had perished on the battlefield against the Goths, and thousands of Rome's finest legionaries lay dead. Into this desperate situation stepped Theodosius, a seasoned general born in Hispania. He rebuilt the army and redefined Rome's relationship with the so-called barbarians. Instead of attempting to annihilate the Goths, he settled them within imperial lands as federati, granting them territory in exchange for military service. This pragmatic solution saved the empire from immediate destruction, though it also sowed the seeds of future discord, for the Goths retained a degree of autonomy within Rome's borders that challenged the old order. Religiously, Theodosius made one of the most consequential decisions in world history. With the Edict of Thessalonica in AD 380, he declared Nicene Christianity the official religion of the empire. From this moment, paganism, which had been Rome's identity for more than a millennium, began to fade before the cross. The Church was no longer merely tolerated, but was elevated to the very center of imperial power, marking the complete union of Roman authority and Christian faith. Theodosius also fought to maintain unity within the empire. He defeated the usurper Maximus in 388 and later crushed Eugenius in 394, restoring imperial control and briefly reuniting the entire empire under one crown. Yet his reign also revealed the new balance of power between church and state. After the massacre of thousands in Thessalonica in AD 390, an atrocity carried out on his orders, Theodosius was publicly confronted by Bishop Ambrose of Milan. The emperor was forced to do penance before the church, a dramatic moment in which the supreme ruler of the Roman world bowed to moral authority, a precedent that would shape relations between emperors and bishops for centuries. When Theodosius died in 395, he divided the empire between his two sons, Honorius in the west and Arcadius in the east. What might have seemed a temporary arrangement became permanent. The dream of a united Rome ended with him, and from that point onward, the empire would remain divided into two halves that followed different destinies. By the 6th century, the Western Roman Empire had collapsed under the weight of invasions and internal weakness. But in the east, at Constantinople, Rome still endured, transformed yet powerful. In 527, Justinian I came to the throne with an extraordinary ambition to restore Rome's greatness and recover the provinces that had fallen to barbarian kingdoms. His vision was nothing less than the restoration of Mediterranean unity under imperial rule. With the help of his brilliant general Belisarius, Justinian embarked on a series of daring campaigns. In 533, he crushed the Vandal kingdom in North Africa in a swift and decisive war, restoring those rich lands to Roman control. He then turned to Italy, launching a long and brutal struggle against the Ostrogoths. For nearly 2 decades, the Italian peninsula became a battleground, devastated by sieges and famine, but ultimately brought back under imperial authority. Even parts of Hispania were reclaimed from the Visigoths. For a moment it seemed as if the Roman Empire had been reborn. Yet this restoration came at tremendous cost, draining the treasury, straining the army, and exhausting the people. Justinian's most enduring achievements, however, lay not only in conquest but also in law and architecture. Determined to bring order to centuries of scattered statutes and juristic writings, he commissioned the Corpus Juris Civilis, or body of civil law. This monumental work systematized Roman law and became the foundation of legal systems across Europe for centuries to come. In architecture, his reign reached its pinnacle with the rebuilding of Constantinople after the devastating Nika revolt of 532. At its center stood the Hagia Sophia, an immense basilica whose dome seemed to float above the city, a marvel of Byzantine engineering that symbolized both imperial majesty and divine authority. Yet his reign was also scarred by tragedy. In 541, the Justinian plague, likely a form of bubonic plague, swept through the empire. It killed millions, emptied cities, disrupted agriculture, and crippled the economy. The dream of complete restoration faded in the face of this disaster. Justinian himself survived the plague, but the empire he left behind at his death in 565 was weary, drained, and unable to sustain the grandeur of his vision. Still, his legacy endured. He was remembered as the last emperor to dream of a universal Rome, and through his legal reforms and monumental buildings, he ensured that his name would be preserved in history. From the windswept battlefields of Gaul to the towering walls of Constantinople, these Caesars were not merely rulers of their age but architects of the world that followed. Their choices shaped the destiny of empires, religions, and civilizations, echoes that still reach into our own time. In your view, which of these emperors was truly the most powerful in Rome's history? Tell me in the comments and let us debate it. If you enjoyed this video, subscribe for more content like it, turn on notifications, and share it with someone who loves history. And as always, may Mars guide you in battle.